Most people think salt attracts money, but in Feng Shui, it can do the opposite. If placed wrong, used wrong, or forgotten, it doesn't just block wealth. It drains it. In this video, you'll discover the 9 most powerful salt rituals and the hidden mistakes that may be reversing your abundance without you even knowing. And more than just rituals, we'll dive deep into the Feng Shui meaning behind each one, the science of how salt interacts with your environment, and the subtle energy lines it activates, blocks, or amplifies. Before we begin, let this be a quiet reminder. Every ritual here has changed someone's flow, sometimes instantly, sometimes silently. Stay until the end, because the last ritual reveals the one energy reset most people never do. And if even one of these speaks to you, subscribe to return. Leave a whisper in the comments so we know your energy is listening. You placed salt under your bed, thinking it would protect you. Maybe you heard it from a friend, or saw it in a viral video. But what if that tiny bowl of salt is silently draining your money every single night? Salt is powerful, yes. It absorbs energy, but it doesn't choose. It takes the good just as easily as the bad. And if it sits directly beneath you while you sleep, it could be pulling in the very thing you've been working so hard to attract: abundance. Your bed is your restoration space. Your energy recharges there. But salt under your bed creates a hidden sinkhole, an invisible drain that pulls at your clarity, your focus, and yes, your financial flow. Have you ever woken up feeling heavy, as if your day starts slow, no matter how long you slept? Have you felt like money slips through your fingers, like you can't catch up, even when you budget carefully? That isn't just stress. It may be an energetic leak, and it's happening right beneath you. Let's fix it. Let's start removing what blocks your wealth, so we can make space for everything you've been asking the universe to send. In the next segment, we'll uncover the signs that salt under your bed is hurting your finances, and how to realign your space for abundance. You've been waking up tired, not just sleepy, but mentally foggy, emotionally off, and financially tense. You check your bank account and sigh. There was money. Now there's less. You try harder, cut spending, say no to things. But still, it feels like your income never stretches far enough. This could be the quiet echo of an energetic imbalance. A pull beneath your bed, soft but constant. And salt, when placed there for too long, can become a sponge of everything you're trying to hold on to. Your clarity, your peace, your prosperity. Here are a few signs that salt under your bed might be draining your wealth. 1. Unexplainable fatigue. Even after 8 hours of sleep, you feel drained. Your mornings are heavy, like you're walking through fog. 2. Unexpected expenses. Money leaves faster than it arrives. You save, and something breaks. You earn, and a bill appears. 3. Mental block or money fog. You feel unmotivated, unsure, disconnected from your financial goals, like abundance is on mute. 4. Stuck financial flow. You work harder, but progress stays the same. Raises, deals, new clients, they stall. If even one of these feels familiar, it's time to stop blaming your strategy and start looking at your space. And if these signs feel familiar, you're not alone. Elena was 32, a freelance designer, creative, ambitious, intuitive. She started doing rituals to protect her space, to clear energy between long work hours and quiet evenings alone. One night, after watching a Feng Shui video, she placed a small bowl of salt under her bed, next to her crystal grid and a journal of affirmations. She thought it would shield her, anchor her sleep, cleanse the unseen. But in the weeks that followed, things didn't get better. They got heavy. Clients ghosted her. Emails slowed down. Payments arrived late. She stopped feeling excited. Her designs lost spark. She'd wake up with a headache, and money seemed to vanish just as fast as it came in. It wasn't until she cleared out under her bed one morning, lifted the salt bowl, and noticed how damp and dense it had become, that she felt a strange drop in her chest. It clicked. The salt wasn't protecting her anymore. It was hoarding everything. Her energy, her clarity, her wealth. The day she removed it, something shifted. She slept deeper, got a surprise inquiry from an old client, and for the first time in weeks, she felt light. Elena's story isn't rare. Salt absorbs. But if we don't release it, it turns sacred space into a sinkhole. I've seen this more than once. Salt, when used without awareness, can do more than cleanse. It can trap. We think we're clearing energy, but what we're really doing is creating a stagnant pool beneath us. And the energy of wealth, it needs space, movement, breath, not silence, stuck in a jar under our spine. I used to think salt was always safe, that more cleansing meant more protection. But energy doesn't work like that. It doesn't respond to quantity. It responds to clarity. So now, I treat every placement as a conversation, a dialogue with the space around me, especially when it comes to money, because I've learned this the hard way. Abundance doesn't just enter a space, it enters where it feels welcome. If you've ever placed salt under your bed, and things started feeling heavy emotionally, financially, you're not the only one. Spaces remember, and sometimes all they need is a moment of awareness to start shifting again. So if you're watching this now, pause for just a second. Look at where you sleep. Is there salt under you? Is it time to let it go? Comment below. I release what no longer serves my wealth. That simple intention may be the key to unlocking flow again. So maybe it's not just about what you place in your space, but how long it's been holding energy you never meant to keep. And if salt, this ancient purifier, is powerful enough to cleanse, what happens when it's left unchecked? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how something sacred can slowly become stagnant, and how, without meaning to, we start holding poverty right beneath our spine. Stay with me. This part might shift the way you see energy forever. You think tossing the salt into the trash is enough? That it's over the moment the bowl leaves your room? What if I told you it's not what you remove, but what you let stay that keeps draining your wealth? Let's talk about salt, and why the most common spiritual tool might be the very thing silently holding back your abundance. Salt is one of the oldest energetic tools in human history. It's been used across cultures, not just in Feng Shui, but in temples, rituals, and protection ceremonies for centuries. Why? Because salt absorbs. It doesn't emit. It doesn't reflect. It takes in, quietly, powerfully, without question. When placed with intention, salt can cleanse a space beautifully. It draws in negativity, stale vibrations, and energetic residue that the body can't always process. But here's where it gets tricky. Salt doesn't have a filter. It doesn't know the difference between bad energy and valuable energy. So, if it's placed too close to your personal field, especially under your bed, where you sleep, recharge, dream, and energetically reset, it can start absorbing what you actually want to keep. Your clarity, your motivation, your sense of direction, and yes, your wealth frequency. In Feng Shui, the bed is not just a place of rest. It is a reflection of your inner stability, your foundation. And when salt sits directly underneath that foundation for too long, it becomes a pool of dense, inactive energy. Imagine pouring your intentions, your affirmations, your visualizations into the universe, only to have them absorbed into a bowl of forgotten salt, night after night. Over time, that salt doesn't just become ineffective, it becomes heavy. And energetically, that heaviness translates into stuckness, financial fog, creative drought, missed opportunities you can't explain. This is not superstition. This is energetic logic. Energy must move. Salt is stillness, and too much stillness becomes stagnation. So if you've been trying to manifest wealth, but feel like something is silently holding it back, check the ground beneath you. It might be time to reset the energy at the very root. So, just remove the salt and you're done? Not quite. Because when you remove energy from a space, you leave a vacuum. And if you don't fill that vacuum with something intentional, it might attract something else. Something you didn't ask for. Energy doesn't like emptiness. The universe doesn't like silence. It always moves to fill the gaps, with momentum or with mess. That's why people who suddenly declutter without grounding rituals often feel restless, even agitated. And that's why removing salt under your bed without replacement can still leave your wealth energy scattered. Instead of salt, try placing a small amethyst or clear quartz under your bed. Not for absorption, but for harmonization. Crystals don't suck energy in. They align. They hold vibration. And when placed with care, they support the flow of abundance instead of draining it. You can also try a bowl of Himalayan salt, not under your bed, but near a window or doorway, where it can do its work without interfering with your wealth field. And don't forget scent. A few drops of lavender or sandalwood oil near your pillow help ground your energy and signal peace to your subconscious. Peace is where abundance rests. I've found that the moment I stopped using salt to block and started using intention to invite, things began to shift. It's not about removing. It's about replacing wisely. About honoring your space enough to decide what gets to stay. Now, if you're wondering, okay, I've replaced the salt, but what about my money blocks? The truth is, some of the biggest energetic leaks don't sit under your bed. They sit much, much closer. What if just one small object in your home could remind your money to stay? Not a big ritual, not a huge change, just a quiet invitation, whispered through a symbol. When you remove salt from the places it no longer belongs, you're not just clearing space, you're also creating a vacuum. And if that space isn't filled with intention, it might be filled with noise, or Worse, emptiness that echoes scarcity. Energy doesn't respond to the absence of negativity. It responds to the presence of clarity. So instead of leaving the space bare, place something that aligns with the energy you want to invite. A gold coin, real or symbolic, is one of the oldest representations of stable wealth. Not to attract money, but to anchor it. A small citrine crystal or yellow quartz near your bed, desk, or altar helps hold the frequency of abundance. It doesn't absorb. It radiates. A folded affirmation note, tucked gently into your wallet or placed near your front door. Something simple like, "I welcome prosperity with ease and grace." Every time your eyes catch it, your energy realigns with that truth. A bowl of fresh oranges or apples in your dining area doesn't just brighten the space, it sends a signal of plenty. In Feng Shui, fruit represents nourishment, flow, and generational wealth. I used to focus only on removing, clearing, detoxing, but I learned the real magic is in what you allow to remain, what you choose to see every day. The small object that makes your space whisper, "Wealth lives here." But wealth doesn't live alone. It shares space with family, food, laughter, and connection. So, if your dining table is filled with clutter or a bowl of forgotten salt, you may be draining not just your own prosperity, but the energy of your entire home. I don't believe wealth is loud. It doesn't need to flash. It doesn't beg for attention. It settles in quiet corners, where you've taken the time to make it feel welcome. I've noticed the biggest shifts, not when I cleared everything, but when I placed something small, with love, with purpose, with meaning, and maybe that's all abundance ever wanted. Not to be chased, but to be invited. If this speaks to you, I'll take a moment now. Look around your space. Is there a corner where wealth could feel more seen? Comment below. Wealth knows it belongs in my home. Let that sentence live in your space. Not just in words, but in every choice you make from here. If your dining table could speak, what would it say about how your family holds wealth? Would it say celebration? Or would it whisper scarcity? Most people place salt on the table out of habit convenience, but few realize that this simple placement can slowly drain abundance from the very space that's meant to nourish it. In Feng Shui, the dining table is not just for food. It represents community, prosperity, and the daily ritual of receiving. So when salt sits there day after day, absorbing energy without being cleansed, it doesn't just affect your meals. It affects the feeling of enough. Think of how you feel when you sit down to eat. Is it rushed, disconnected, or surrounded by clutter and conversation that feels transactional? Salt is a purifier, yes, but if left on the table too long, it begins to pull in the richness, warmth, gratitude, shared joy, and yes, the vibration of receiving. When that energy is drained, even a table full of food can feel emotionally empty. This doesn't just impact your mood, it impacts how your family receives abundance on a daily, energetic level. I've walked into homes that looked beautiful, but felt cold around the table. And I've sat at simple wooden ones, where the energy of love and enoughness was so present, it felt like the whole room was smiling. It's not about the chairs, not the decor. It's about what lives on that table when you're not eating. So ask yourself gently, is this space feeding more than just your body? Because your wealth isn't just built in your bank account. It's built in the choices you make about what stays and what you're finally ready to release. You didn't do it wrong. You were trying to protect, to cleanse, to make your space feel safe. But maybe wealth doesn't respond to protection. It responds to permission. We place salt with good intentions, but we forget to remove it with the same awareness. And so our home becomes a mix of sacred tools, used in sacred ways, but left in silence. And in that silence, wealth quietly slips away. The truth is, abundance isn't loud. It doesn't arrive in chaos. It doesn't respond to fear. It shows up when there's space. Clean, intentional space, with room to breathe and a reason to stay. So maybe what you need right now isn't another ritual, but a gentle reset, a decision to choose what stays, to honor what's already enough, and to stop crowding your home with tools when what you really need is trust. I've found that wealth doesn't come to those who chase it. It comes to those who create a home for it, not just in furniture, but in the way they speak, the way they breathe, the way they believe they're worthy. Every item you remove now, every corner you choose to reset, is a declaration. I am no longer afraid to have money. If this message reached you at the right moment, take it as a sign. Your space is listening. And maybe, just maybe, it's been waiting for you to begin again. Comment below. I invite wealth home, not because you're chasing it, but because you're finally ready to receive. And as always, if this resonated, like, share, and subscribe to Chi for love and abundance, where your journey to energetic wealth begins with the space you already have. Every space we live in holds energy, but few realize the corners are where that energy collects, lingers, and speaks the loudest. Imagine walking into a grand, open room. The center feels airy, alive, but at the edges, in the corners, you might feel a heaviness, a stillness. That stillness is not peace. It's stagnation. Energy, like water, needs to flow. When energy pools in the corners without movement, without renewal, it becomes dense. It becomes heavy. And instead of nourishing your life, your wealth, your spirit, it starts to weigh you down. In ancient Feng Shui teachings, corners were known as the silent guardians of prosperity. They either protect your wealth or quietly erode it, bit by bit, year after year. When the energy at the corners grows stale, opportunities seem to slip away. Money leaks through unnoticed expenses. New paths seem blocked, as if life itself moves slower, heavier, more resistant. And the hardest part? You might not even realize it, because you don't see energy with your eyes. You feel it with your spirit, with the sudden tiredness you can't explain, with the money you work hard for, yet never seem able to grow. That's why today, we're not just talking about decoration. We're talking about unlocking the silent doors, where your prosperity is waiting, trapped, hoping you'll finally notice. In every ancient culture, salt was never just a seasoning. It was sacred, a guardian, a bridge between worlds. But while salt can cleanse, if placed without intention, it can also anchor the very stagnation you wish to release. Salt holds an incredible ability. It absorbs and neutralizes stagnant energies. It acts like a sponge for emotions left behind: stress, fear, arguments, sadness. Yet, salt is not passive. It must be activated through mindful placement. In spiritual traditions from Egypt to Tibet, salt was placed deliberately at entry points, thresholds, and most importantly, at the corners of sacred spaces. Why corners? Because corners are where old energies settle. They're crossroads where unseen currents either build or block. When you place salt with clear intention in the four corners of your home, you are sending a powerful message into the unseen. This space is protected. This space is clear. This space invites flow. Salt doesn't just sit. It works. Day and night, it silently absorbs, shields, and resets the energetic pathways of your home. Think about the spaces you live in. Are there arguments that once echoed through these walls? Fears whispered late at night? Heavy silences after long, difficult days? What if the corners you thought were empty are still holding echoes of those moments, quietly blocking the prosperity trying to reach you? And if something so simple, so ancient, can hold such power, I imagine what could happen when you finally place it with pure, focused intention. If a part of you feels a quiet stirring right now, sensing that there's something more alive within your home, honor that feeling, because where energy flows, abundance follows. Stay with me, and let's unlock it together. And if you feel called to, share your thoughts below. Even a single word can start shifting your energy. Sometimes, it's not the grand gestures, but the quiet, simple acts that stir the deepest shifts in our lives. Let me share with you a story, one that began with just a handful of salt and a heart ready to believe. There was once a woman living in a beautiful home. From the outside, her life seemed calm, even fortunate, but inside, she often felt a strange heaviness. Mornings began with a weight she couldn't name. Opportunities she reached for seemed to slip like water through her hands. One evening, at a small spiritual gathering, someone spoke of an ancient ritual, a practice as simple as it was powerful, placing bowls of pure salt at the four corners of her living space. No grand ceremonies, no dramatic changes, just quiet trust. That night, she went home. In the soft glow of a single candle, she placed small bowls of salt, one in each corner of her home. She whispered a simple intention with each one. May stagnant energy dissolve. May abundance find its way to me again. Days passed. Not much seemed different at first, but slowly, the air inside her home began to feel lighter. She noticed she laughed more. Small blessings appeared. A forgotten refund check arrived. A neighbor offered unexpected help. New clients reached out without her chasing them. It wasn't a magic spell. It wasn't superstition. It was alignment. She had invited energy to flow again, and with it wealth followed, like a river remembering its path. If a few grains of salt, placed with pure intention, could create such a shift, imagine what could happen if you too welcomed this ritual into your home. Stories like hers remind me that it's not always the complicated rituals or the endless chasing of abundance that shift our lives. Sometimes, it's in the simple moments: a bowl of salt, a whispered intention, a willingness to clear space inside and out, that real magic happens. Energy doesn't respond to how much we struggle. It responds to how open we are, to letting it flow freely. And now, if you feel ready to awaken that flow within your own home, let's begin together with the Salt Corners ritual. If just a handful of salt placed with care, can shift the energy of an entire home. Imagine what might happen when you do it with full conscious intention. Many think that placing salt is enough, simply setting it down and walking away. But it's not just about where you place it. It's about how you place it, the awareness you bring, the energy you anchor. So today, let's walk through the Salt Corners ritual together, a simple, powerful act of clearing, inviting new flow, and welcoming abundance home. Begin by gathering your tools. 4 small bowls made of glass or ceramic and pure natural sea salt. Avoid metal or plastic if you can. Natural materials hold energy more gently. Before placing anything, take a soft cloth and gently wipe each of the 4 corners of your main living space. As you clean, imagine the dust lifting not just from the surface, but from the energy itself, clearing old weight, forgotten worries, hidden stagnation. Then, hold the bowls of salt in your hands. Close your eyes for a moment. Whisper an intention into the salt, something as simple and true as, "With this salt, I clear the way for abundance to flow." Now, place each bowl carefully into the corners. Not hurriedly, not thoughtlessly, but with a breath of gratitude at each step. As you set them down, imagine tiny beacons of light beginning to glow, quiet guardians, dissolving the old, opening space for the new. Leave the bowls untouched for 7 to 14 days. Check them gently from time to time. If you notice the salt clumping, yellowing, or hardening, that's not a mistake. That's the salt doing its silent work, pulling in what no longer serves your space. When the time comes to complete the ritual, gather the salt with care. Do not throw it in the regular trash. Instead, return it to nature, bury it in the earth with gratitude, or dissolve it into a flowing river if you can. Because when we offer back what we've released, we close the circle and invite fresh blessings to take root. This ritual isn't about superstition. It's about alignment. It's about making a conscious choice to clear the hidden blocks, to breathe new life into forgotten spaces, to say with your actions, not just your words, "I am ready for prosperity to find me." And as your home begins to shift, as the air grows lighter, and the corners no longer whisper heaviness but hum with quiet possibility, you may just find the opportunities, the abundance, the ease you've been longing for begin quietly, gracefully, to return to you. Sometimes the changes begin so quietly you might almost miss them. A certain lightness in the morning air, a feeling that your footsteps sound clearer, softer, as if the walls themselves are exhaling a long-held breath. After performing the Salt Corners ritual, you may start to notice subtle shifts, not dramatic fireworks, but gentle awakenings. You might find that conversations in your home feel warmer, that laughter comes more easily, that silence feels comforting rather than heavy. You may notice unexpected blessings arriving, a long-delayed payment clearing, an opportunity opening seemingly from nowhere, a sense of timing that finally feels right. Even without obvious material signs, you may sense it inwardly, a quiet alignment, a trust that prosperity is no longer pushing against locked doors but moving with you, naturally, gracefully. And sometimes, the evidence appears in your own spirit first. You wake with lighter thoughts. You feel nudges to act on ideas you might have hesitated over before. You welcome small risks. You trust the unfolding. These are not coincidences. They are signs, quiet, luminous confirmations that your home's energy has realigned, that the stagnant currents have lifted, and that the channels of wealth and vitality are now open, flowing steadily once more. If you have felt even one of these shifts, trust it. Celebrate it, however small, because every ripple you create in your energy field ripples outward, drawing abundance back to you in ways seen and unseen. I know this because my own home once held that same silent weight. I didn't realize it at first. I simply felt tired more often. Opportunities seemed to take longer to reach me. Even celebrations felt muted somehow. It wasn't until I cleared my space with simple, conscious rituals like the salt corners that I understood how deeply a home's energy weaves into the fabric of our lives. Sometimes, the heaviest blocks are the ones we can't see, but we can feel them, and we can choose to release them. If today's journey resonated with you, even in the smallest way, I invite you to leave a comment below, to share what shifts you're hoping to welcome into your space. Sometimes, putting an intention into words is the very first step toward making it real. If you found this ritual meaningful, consider liking and sharing this video so that more homes and more hearts can remember how to flow freely again. The flow of abundance isn't something we force. It's something we align with by clearing our spaces, by honoring the unseen. We open the channels that were always meant to carry prosperity into our lives. May your home breathe lighter, may your steps feel freer, and may you remember always that small acts of intention hold great power. I clear space for wealth to flow to me naturally, gracefully, and with joy. If today's ritual resonated with you, I would love to hear your thoughts below. Every story shared here weaves a stronger field of abundance for us all. Thank you for being here, for walking this gentle path with me. Until next time, stay open, stay flowing, and trust the blessings already on their way to you. Every morning, before the noise awakens, before the world demands your attention, there is a sacred window when the air is still pure and the energies are waiting silently at your door. The ancients believed that the first breath of dawn carries the purest flow of abundance, untouched by doubt, untouched by fear. But if we forget, if we rush, that river of wealth flows right past us, unseen, unfelt. So tomorrow, before you do anything else, take a small pinch of pure salt. Feel its coolness against your skin. Feel the weight of 1,000 ancient prayers resting in your hand. Stand before your main door. Breathe deeply. Listen to the quiet heartbeat of the earth under your feet. And when you feel ready, gently scatter the salt outward, beyond your threshold. As you release each grain, whisper softly to the morning breeze. As I rise, abundance rises with me. As I step forward, fortune flows to meet me. See it, feel it, the silent threads of prosperity weaving themselves into your path. How many mornings have passed you by without a single word of welcome to the abundance waiting outside? How many rivers of fortune knocked on your door, but found it closed? The morning opens the day, but the night opens the unseen. When the full moon rises, another portal awaits. Long ago, across the bustling markets of ancient lands, merchants would rise before the sun, while the world still lay cloaked in dreams. Before they set foot on long journeys across deserts, rivers, oceans, they performed a quiet ritual, a simple scattering of salt across their doorways. They believed that salt would guard their paths from misfortune and call forth the spirits of prosperity to travel with them. Each grain, a silent prayer. Each pinch, a promise whispered into the winds. And they trusted that abundance would not come by chance, but by invitation. a sacred invitation carried by the ancient crystal of the earth. Perhaps wealth has always been closer than we think, not something to chase, but something to awaken. Perhaps it is waiting even now for a simple gesture, for a quiet calling to find its way home to us. And just as the morning carries its quiet gifts, the night, under the gaze of the full moon, holds secrets of cleansing and calling abundance to your soul. At night, when the world grows still and the full moon crowns the sky, the energies shift and hidden doors creak open in the unseen. The ancients knew that the full moon was not just a light in the sky, but a mirror reflecting our deepest energies back to us. It is under the full moon that cleansing becomes sacred. It is when the earth breathes out and all things hidden come to the surface. Tonight, you will perform a ritual to cleanse the unseen pathways and call prosperity to flow freely again. Prepare a clear bowl of pure water. Add a small handful of salt. Stir it gently, feeling the grains dissolve as old blocks melt away. Place the bowl under the open sky, where the full moonlight can kiss the water. And as you gaze into the shimmering surface, whisper your release. Tonight, I release all burdens. I cleanse all that hinders my wealth. I open the river of abundance back to me. Let the bowl sit through the night, soaking in the light, soaking in the breath of the universe. How many burdens, how many silent fears have we unknowingly carried, blocking the wealth that longs to reach us? Without cleansing, even gold cannot find its way through. At dawn, pour the water away. Let it carry your old blocks far from you, back into the earth, back into silence. Scientists have found that water molecules are highly sensitive to environmental energies. Under the light of the full moon, water undergoes subtle structural shifts, amplifying its ability to absorb and store energetic frequencies. Combined with the crystalline structure of salt, this creates a powerful medium for cleansing stagnant energy trapped around you. When you place your salt water under the moonlight, you are not just following an old ritual. You are aligning with the ancient and the molecular, purifying your path with both spirit and science. I believe that cleansing is not just about removing what blocks us. It's about making space for something greater to find its way into our lives. We often think we must struggle, chase, fight, but sometimes abundance comes only when we learn to let go. If tonight you feel even the faintest burden in your heart, it is a sign that something beautiful is waiting to replace it. By releasing, you are not losing. You are inviting the universe to fill that empty space with gold, with blessings, with freedom. Tell me in the comments, what will you choose to release tonight? I let go of what no longer serves me. I open my arms to receive the abundance already on its way. And once the way is cleansed, once the river is clear, it is time to plant a new seed of wealth. Once the way is cleared, it is time to plant the seed. In the old days, before banks, before contracts, wealth was hidden, not to be taken, but to be nurtured. They would bury coins deep into the earth, whisper their dreams to the soil, and trust that the spirit of abundance would multiply them in unseen ways. Today, you will create your own hidden treasure, a quiet beacon, a promise, a seed planted in the energy of the universe. Take a small, clear jar, one that feels light in your hands. Pour in pure salt, slowly, as if you are pouring light itself, each grain a star. Each star, a wish, unseen, yet already alive. Next, take a coin, gold or silver, and place it gently into the salt. Feel it sink, like a memory being planted deep into fertile ground. Then write your intention, but not as a wish. No, write it as if it has already happened, as if the rivers of gold have already carved paths toward you. Fold the paper gently. Hold it close for a moment. Let your breath warm it, and when you are ready, tuck it deep into the salt, like planting a sacred seed. Close the jar. Seal it not just with a lid, but with a knowing that what is buried with faith rises in bloom when the season is right. Place the jar somewhere sacred, somewhere private, somewhere it can listen to your life, quietly growing roots beneath the surface. And every time your eyes fall upon it, feel the seed stirring beneath the soil. Feel the tide of wealth already moving unseen but unstoppable. Wealth is not chased. Wealth is grown, and you are the gardener, the dreamer, and the keeper of gold yet to come. Salt's crystalline lattice is not random. It naturally attracts, stores, and stabilizes energy patterns, especially intentions infused with emotion. Meanwhile, metals like silver and copper are known conductors of energy, enhancing the anchoring of your manifesting desires into the physical realm. When you seal your wish inside salt and metal, you are embedding your intention into a network of energy fields quietly drawing prosperity into form. Before the doors open, before the rivers flow, there is always a moment of stillness, a moment to listen, a moment to choose. In the silent space between breaths, your new wealth journey quietly begins. 3 simple rituals, each one a thread woven into the fabric of your Feng Shui. Each one a silent call to wealth, abundance, and unseen fortune. Morning salt blessing to open the doors of energy. Full moon purification, cleanse and reset your path. Salt jar manifestation, to root your intentions deep into the flow of prosperity. In Feng Shui, small shifts create great currents. In the sacred language of energy, even a handful of salt can redirect the river of your destiny. The wealth you seek is not beyond you. It is already flowing, waiting for you to open the right door. Maybe today, you place salt at your threshold. Maybe tonight, you let the moonlight cleanse your home and soul. Maybe you plant a seed so small, yet so potent. It blooms in a lifetime of abundance. The choice is always yours. Which doorway will you open first? If you feel a stirring in your heart, if you feel the quiet whisper of wealth awakening within you, leave a comment below. Tell me, which ritual will you begin with tonight? And remember, I open my path to prosperity. I trust the ancient energies of wealth. I am ready to receive abundance with every breath I take. You placed the salt. You set it down near your door, maybe under a mirror or beside your bed, and you waited for the energy to shift, for things to feel lighter, for money to arrive. But nothing moved. The air stayed still. The tension in your home didn't dissolve. The flow of wealth didn't return. This is the first mistake, one that almost everyone makes, one that no one talks about: placing salt without intention. Because in Feng Shui, salt isn't just a mineral. It's a tool, a silent messenger that carries your energy into the field of qi. But if you offer it nothing, if you just set it down and walk away, then what is it supposed to hold? Salt responds to presence, to direction, to clarity. Just like wind needs a path to move, qi needs intention to flow. And when you place salt passively, it doesn't guard you. It doesn't cleanse anything. It simply sits, still, empty, as blind as the silence in your own thoughts. In ancient practice, no grain of salt was ever placed without a purpose. In the temples, they whispered into it. In the markets, they buried it with prayer. Even in the simplest homes, they spoke to the salt before scattering it, like someone passing a secret to the earth itself. Because in Feng Shui, Mui Hongfei De, Trang Tri Nang Leung, Mala De Dorn Dung Cho Tai Lok Di Vao. So when you place it, without whispering your intention, you've placed a bowl of silence. And silence doesn't call abundance. But it only takes a breath to shift this. A single sentence, a whisper with presence. With this salt, I open the river of wealth. I invite qi to return. I choose to awaken my home again. Say it. Mean it. Let the salt hear you. Because in this world, energy follows intention. And in the world of Feng Shui, nothing flows where you do not lead it. How many things in your life have you done on autopilot while hoping for miracles? How often have you placed your faith into something without fully placing your presence too? Now you've spoken. Now the salt is awake. But the next mistake isn't about what you say. It's about where you put it. You did everything right, the way they said it. You bought the purest salt. You placed it with a whisper. And yet, the heaviness remained. No shift. No change. No flow. The truth is simple, but rarely spoken. Salt doesn't work if it's placed where qi does not move. This is the second mistake, one I've made too. I used to put salt in hidden corners, behind plants, under shelves, near windows that never opened. It felt safe, invisible, tidy, but nothing changed. Until one night, I realized I wasn't placing salt. I was burying it. You see, in Feng Shui, salt is not just a symbol of purification. It's a tool to intercept and redirect energy flow. But qi, tai qi, doesn't pass through dead corners. It travels like wind, like breath, like water. It moves where space is clear, where light touches, where life still breathes. And when you place salt in places with no air, no sound, no light, it absorbs nothing. It clots. It turns heavy. And slowly, it begins to pull the stagnant energy into itself, like a sponge that never gets rinsed. I used to think I understood this. I thought, just place the salt somewhere quiet, somewhere clean, and it'll do its job. Corners felt safe. Closed cabinets felt hidden, but powerful, like I was placing secrets in sacred places. But nothing changed. For weeks, months, I kept cleansing, rearranging, whispering, but the flow never came back. Until a conversation with an old friend. Her name is Mei Lin. She's second-generation Chinese-American and a Feng Shui consultant who grew up watching her grandmother cleanse spaces by hand. No books, no apps, just instinct and deep, inherited knowing. One afternoon over tea, she said something that made everything fall into place. Salt only listens where energy breathes. She explained how her grandmother would walk barefoot around the home. Before placing anything, she would feel for where the chi was stuck, where the air stood still, and only place salt in places that felt alive, not silent, not hidden, not dead. Mei Lin looked at me and said, "If your home is a body, salt is a healer. But what happens if you keep the healer in a closet?" I laughed. Then I went home, and I moved the salt. The next morning, the air felt different, like something finally moved again. It wasn't dramatic, but it was undeniable. And that was when I realized Feng Shui isn't about decoration. It's about alignment. It's about speaking the same language as the energy trying to find you. That's when I stopped hiding salt and started placing it where Qi could carry my wish to the world. The consequence? Your home begins to choke. The energy grows thick, not dark, just dull, like something quietly falling asleep while you're still trying to dream. And when that dullness settles, wealth stops knocking, because the door is closed, in the places you don't look. So what can you do? It's simple, but precise. Find the places in your home where light enters naturally, where wind crosses, where the door breathes in the morning. That is where salt wants to live. In Feng Shui, these are called open qi lines, energy arteries that bring tai he, prosperity, flow, from the outer world into your life. Place the salt bowl there, not hidden, but humbled. Let it listen. Let it catch the flow. Let it work with the house, not against it. Whisper again, I place this salt where life moves, where wealth enters, where Qi can carry it to me. Let it sit there for 7 days. Watch how the light feels different, how even silence begins to hum again. What if the wealth you asked for wasn't lost, just waiting outside a door you never opened? What if energy isn't stuck, you just never led it through the right path? Now you've awakened the salt. You've found its path. But there's one mistake left. And this one doesn't happen when you place the salt. It happens when you forget it. Before we move on, I want you to pause for a moment, because this next mistake is the one I believe 95% of people make. Even those who think they've done everything right. Even those who followed every step. It's not loud. It doesn't feel wrong. In fact, it often hides behind good intentions. And that's what makes it so powerful. If you've ever left salt in your home, forgotten, unchanged, untouched, then you may already know what this third mistake is. But tonight, you'll understand why. It quietly blocks your prosperity more than any other. Let's look deeper. You placed the salt. You remembered to whisper. You chose the right place. And then, you forgot it. This is the third mistake, the quietest one, and perhaps the most dangerous, because salt is not meant to sit forever. Salt absorbs. It holds. It collects what you no longer need. The stagnation, the tension, the heaviness you were ready to let go of. But here's the truth no one tells you. If you do not release what salt holds, it begins to return it. In Feng Shui, everything moves in cycles. Qi flows like breath. When you hold your breath too long, you choke. When you hold stagnant energy, your home does too. Salt that has done its job turns. The crystals harden. The surface yellows. The texture collapses. And quietly, the salt begins to leak what it trapped. Modern energy studies reveal something ancient wisdom already knew. Crystalline structures like salt don't just absorb. When oversaturated, they begin to emit. And not all that is emitted is clean. Salt, when left too long, starts recycling the very heaviness you asked it to hold. Not maliciously, but because everything in this universe seeks release. And when that energy has nowhere else to go, it flows back into the walls, into the air, into you. Not because it's bad, but because you've kept it past its purpose. In the consequence, you begin to feel stuck, like life isn't flowing. Money comes in, but drips out. Work multiplies, but not results. Ideas fade. Opportunities stall. And worst of all, you don't know why. Because nothing seems wrong, but everything feels off. One woman once told me she had left a bowl of salt in her bedroom for 3 months. She thought it was harmless, a small thing, a background ritual. But over time, she began waking up tired, feeling unmotivated. Her business slowed, payments delayed. She thought it was stress, economy, burnout. Then one night, she found the salt again, hard, yellowed, forgotten. She took it outside, poured it into the soil beneath a tree, and whispered, "Take what I no longer carry." 2 days later, she received her first unexpected payment in months. A client she'd lost returned. And for the first time in weeks, she felt light. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe salt had done its work and was waiting to be released. This is what stagnant salt does. It doesn't block your luck in one day. It slowly dulls the room, the air, the chi, your trust in your own energy. So how do you shift it? You complete the ritual. You return the salt to the earth, to the water, to the flow, and you do it with care. Because the salt has served you. It has held pain, sorrow, fear, confusion. It has done the work that no one else could do. So don't just dump it into the trash. Hold it in both hands. Take a deep breath. Whisper, "Thank you for holding what I no longer need. I release you now, and I open the river again, then return it. To water that flows, a river, a drain, a stream, or to the earth, beneath a tree, into the roots. Let it go somewhere that breathes. In Feng Shui, this is how you complete the cycle. Energy enters. Energy transforms. Energy exits. What you release with grace returns as grace. Never throw old salt in the trash. It has served you. It has held what you could not carry. Take it gently, walk with it, and say, "Thank you for holding what I no longer need. I release you now, and I open my space for wealth to return." This is not superstition. This is alignment. This is flow. This is Feng Shui. In energy, what you trap, traps you, and what you release returns as light. How long have you held on to what you meant to let go? What energies are clumping in your space, just waiting for you to notice? You've awakened the salt. You've placed it where chi flows. And now, you've learned how to let it go. This is the moment the ritual ends, and your wealth journey begins again. 3 mistakes all made with good intentions, all done in silence, and all powerful enough to quietly turn prosperity away. You placed the salt, but forgot to speak to it. You set it in a room where qi could not move. You left it there, long after it completed its work. These aren't just mistakes. They are forgotten languages. They are moments when our homes tried to listen, but we had already turned away. In Feng Shui, every grain matters. Every object holds a question. Are you awake? Are you aligned? Are you listening to your space as it listens to you? Tonight, you remembered. You paused. You witnessed the flow of energy that's been trying to reach you all along. So now, a new choice is yours. To place with presence, to cleanse with rhythm, to release with reverence. Because wealth isn't just coins or contracts. It's the hum of a room that welcomes you. It's the clarity in your thoughts. It's the moment when flow returns, without you needing to force it. So tonight, place the salt again, but differently. Whisper into it. Place it where life moves. And when the time comes, let it go. Like a breath, you no longer need to hold. I don't say these things because they sound good. I say them because I've lived them. There was a time when I placed salt everywhere. I read the blogs. I followed the steps. But nothing moved. And I didn't understand why. Until one day, I stopped asking how to do it right and started asking, what energy am I really holding in my home? Am I truly present, or just hoping something will change for me? That shift from doing to feeling, from placing to inviting, that changed everything. And that's why I make these videos. Not to teach, not to preach, but to quietly share what once helped me open the doors again. So if you're here, still listening, thank you. It means something in you is already moving again. What was the one mistake you didn't know you were making? Or maybe, what's one thing you'll release tonight to let your wealth flow again? If this video stirred something quiet in you, a realization, a remembering, then it's not by chance. In Feng Shui, even the smallest shift can open a new river of qi, and what flows in is always connected to what you've cleared. So comment below. Tell me your ritual. Tell me what you'll try. Tell me what door you're ready to open again. I choose flow. I open my space. I welcome the return of wealth that was always waiting for me to remember. There's something we all do without realizing it. We buy the salt. We place it near the door. We follow the steps. Maybe even say the words, but still, nothing moves. No shift. No ease. No wealth. And the question quietly returns, am I doing something wrong? I used to think the answer was no. That maybe the universe needed more time. That I just needed to wait. But now I understand. It's not about waiting. It's about waking. You see, salt is not a passive tool. It's a vessel, a crystallized memory of Earth's movement, formed under ancient pressure, layer by layer, silence by silence. And like all things that carry memory, salt responds only to presence, to breath, to touch, to qi. In Feng Shui, we understand this deeply. Nothing flows where energy is still asleep, and that includes your tools, especially the ones that hold power to redirect Tai He, the vital breath of prosperity. When you place salt while it's still dormant, when you drop it into a corner without intention, you're not attracting wealth. You're just placing something that looks like a ritual, but lives like a shadow. Salt that hasn't been activated doesn't carry your energy. It just sits, like a song never sung, like a doorway never opened. And worse, it becomes something you forget, until one day you realize you've surrounded yourself with silence and called it a spiritual tool. So tonight, we change that. We stop placing salt. We start waking it. Because the truth is simple. The power is not in the salt. The power is in your energy, living inside it. Let's cleanse what's asleep. Let's begin again. This time, with presence. Salt remembers everything. Every space it's touched. Every vibration it has absorbed. Every breath of energy, pure or heavy, it has quietly held. That's what makes salt powerful. But it's also what makes it dangerous when it is not cleansed. You see, even if you bought it new, even if it's pure by the label, it still carries frequencies from storage rooms, factory lines, plastic packaging, and the hundreds of silent vibrations it passed through before it reached your hands. In Feng Shui, this is a critical layer. Every object in your home carries energy. And if the tool you're using to clear is already carrying stagnant qi, you're not cleansing, you're layering. Layering confusion, layering blocks, layering silence over silence. So how do we begin again? How do we return the salt to its original function? To become a clean vessel for wealth flow, we cleanse it, not just with water, but with light, with sound, and with spirit. So how do we begin again? How do we return the salt to its original function? To become a clean vessel for wealth flow, we cleanse it, not just with water, but with light, with sound, and with spirit. Ritual. Step 1. Sunlight cleanse. Place your salt under early morning sunlight. Not harsh, not midday, just the first breath of the sun when the air is still soft. Let it sit for at least 15-20 minutes. Sunlight carries a frequency of renewal. It reorders the crystalline pattern of salt. It burns away stagnant traces without words. And once the light has done its quiet work, it's time to stir vibration. Because some energies can only be broken by sound. Ritual step 2. Sound reset. Use a gentle bell, a sound bowl, or even your own voice. Let the sound ripple across the surface. Break the stillness. Let vibration move through structure. Salt listens. Salt responds. Now that light and sound have opened the surface, there's one last touch it needs. Your breath, your presence. Not just vibration, but your living qi. Ritual step 3. Breath intention. Hold the bowl. Bring it close. Close your eyes. Take a deep, steady breath and exhale over the surface. Not to blow, but to offer the breath that carries your qi. This is the moment you begin to place your own energy into the vessel. You may wonder, why do these steps feel ancient yet strangely precise? Because even now, modern science is beginning to understand what ancient rituals always knew. Modern research in molecular vibration shows that salt's lattice structure is highly responsive to electromagnetic and sound waves. Water and salt are two of the most impressionable materials when it comes to energetic imprint. That's why ancient cultures didn't just use salt. They blessed it. They sang to it. They placed it in sacred geometry. In today's words, they were aligning energy frequencies to create a conduit for flow. But long before we had labs and graphs, wisdom was passed through breath, through practice, through quiet example. Let me tell you a story. In a temple garden in Kyoto, a monk once told his disciple, "Before you place the salt, place your peace." Each morning, he would cleanse his salt with incense, whisper over it, and only then would he sprinkle it along the temple path. He believed that salt is not the protector. Your chi is. Salt is only the bridge. And if your chi is scattered, salt cannot hold your wealth. How many times have you skipped this step? How many times have you asked for clarity, using something clouded? Before you charge your salt, cleanse it. Before you program abundance, clear the space. Let's move on to the ritual, where your salt begins to carry wealth. And so, the lesson is clear. From temples to today, from Kyoto to your living room. We don't place salt to begin. We cleanse it to prepare. We arrive first, so the chi can follow. Before we begin the final ritual, there's something I need to tell you. Something personal. Because the truth is, I didn't always believe in this. I used salt the way most people do. Followed the steps, read the articles, placed it by the door. I hoped it would help, but inside, I didn't feel anything. No shift, no change, just more silence. And for a long time, I thought maybe this wasn't real. Maybe energy didn't work for me. Maybe wealth just wasn't meant to flow through my life. But over time, something changed. It wasn't the salt. It was the way I showed up to the ritual. The way I breathed. The way I spoke. The way I stopped rushing and started listening. I realized salt was never the magic. I was. And salt was just the mirror. That's when I began to charge it. Not with wishes, but with presence. Not with hopes, but with a wealth signature that lived in my energy. And that's what I want to share with you now. Because once you learn how to place yourself into the ritual, you no longer chase abundance. You become the magnet. So now, let me guide you through the ritual that changed everything for me. The one where salt begins to carry your name in the energy of prosperity. Now that your salt has been cleansed, it is empty, but ready, waiting, like a bowl, just before the first drop of gold. In Feng Shui, this is the moment of alignment, because wealth doesn't just flow to purity, it flows to intention. And salt, when charged correctly, doesn't just attract, it remembers. It remembers your dream, your readiness, your name in the energy of abundance. So tonight, we imprint. We place the wealth signature inside the salt, not through magic, but through presence. Let's begin. Step 1. Prepare a clean, clear jar. Choose a small jar, glass or ceramic. Something that feels light, soft in your hands, natural. This jar is not just a container. It is a vessel, a temple, and what you place inside will begin to grow roots in the energetic field around you. Now, bring the salt, the one you just cleansed. Touch it gently. Feel the coolness, the silence that now waits to be named. Step 2. Pour salt into the jar, slowly with intention. Let it fall like snow. Let it sound like soft sand. Each grain receives your energy. Visualize. As it pours, you are building a foundation, like soil for the tree of wealth. Step 3. Add a coin, your wealth conductor. Choose a coin, gold or silver if possible, not for value, but for resonance. In energy theory, metal is a conductor. It anchors. It remembers shape, frequency, flow. Let this coin become the magnet inside your seed. Place it gently in the center of the salt, not dropped, placed. Now, it is time to give the salt your signature, but not as a wish, not as a hope. Write it, as if it has already bloomed. Step 4. Write your intention as a wealth already received statement. Use present tense. Use clarity. Use emotion. Instead of, I want to attract more money, say, I now live in financial ease. My wealth supports me with grace and freedom. Fold the paper. Hold it to your chest. Breathe into it once. Let your warmth become the ink. Then, place it inside the salt. Let it rest between grains. Let it be held. Step 5. Seal the jar, not just with a lid, but with knowing. Close the jar. Hold it in both hands. Whisper softly, you now carry my abundance. You now hold the shape of wealth around me. I release the how, and I open the flow. This is not a closing. This is a planting. Place the jar somewhere sacred, private, still, where it can listen, where your life can speak to it in small ways. Let it stay. Let it watch. Let it work. Because wealth is not rushed. It is invited. How often have you asked for more, but never imprinted what more means to you? Tonight, that changes. Now, the energy around you has a shape, a pulse, a home, and that home is salt. Why salt can hold intention and attract wealth energy? You may wonder, can salt really do this? Can a crystal, a grain of the earth, hold energy, carry intention, and quietly reshape the flow of abundance? Science has an answer. Salt is not just a mineral. It is a geometric matrix, a crystalline structure designed to stabilize, store, and transmit energy. Just like quartz, just like crystal radios, just like the memory chips in your devices, built on the same principle: vibration, frequency, order. When you speak into salt, with breath, emotion, and clarity, you are not performing magic. You are performing resonance imprinting. And when combined with conductive elements like copper or silver, and sealed in a container that limits energy leakage, you create a localized energetic field. What does that mean? It means your wish doesn't just vanish into thin air. It lives, it stays, and it begins to radiate. In Feng Shui, we understand this as qi anchoring, a way to plant a pulse, a frequency of wealth, into the invisible currents of your home. So when you place this charged salt jar in a sacred spot, you're not hoping, you're activating, you're allowing your personal wealth signal to quietly shape the qi around you. You know, I've shared the steps, the rituals, the science, the meanings, but there's something I haven't shared, something I always hold back. Until now, I still remember the first time I placed my own salt jar. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't elegant. I didn't have the perfect coin. The words didn't sound spiritual. I wasn't even sure if I believed what I was doing, but something in me said, try anyway, and so I did. I poured the salt slowly, even though my hands shook. I placed the coin gently, even though I doubted its meaning. I wrote my intention, and it didn't feel magical. It felt honest, small, but real. That night, I sat with it. No incense, no candles, just me, and that jar, and a silence that felt strangely alive. The next morning, nothing had changed. Bills still existed. Emails still came. But the air in my room felt just a little bit lighter. And inside me, something had shifted. Not because the salt worked overnight, but because I showed up for the first time. I chose to believe, not because someone told me to, but because I wanted to see what happened when energy and action finally moved in the same direction. Since then, I've changed many things. The way I breathe before working, the way I speak to my space, the way I hold money, not just as numbers, but as energy. But I never forgot that night, that one jar, that quiet choice, that invisible shift. So if you feel unsure right now, if your ritual didn't feel perfect, if your intention didn't sound poetic, that's okay. Rituals don't work because they're flawless. They work because you show up. And tonight, if you did, you are not waiting anymore. You are already aligned. And salt now carries your name. In the language of wealth, I am no longer hoping. I am remembering. And what I remember returns to me. That was my first jar, my first ritual, my first whisper into the dark. And maybe tonight, what you've just done is yours. No matter how small it felt, no matter how unsure it seemed, this is where it begins. Because in every quiet ritual, there is a ripple, and in that ripple, there is change. So now, as this journey closes, let's return to the room around you, to the space you live in, to the chi that is now quietly shifting in corners you cannot yet see. Let's seal this energy with presence, with breath, and with a final blessing for the wealth already on its way. You've done more than just follow steps. You've awakened something, not just in salt, but in you. Because in Feng Shui, a small action done with full presence has the power to move entire rivers of qi. And today, with light, sound, breath, and clarity, you've created more than a jar. You've planted a signal, a field, a quiet current of wealth that now moves with you. This is not superstition. It is alignment. This is not about chasing wealth, but inviting it home. So place your salt where it can listen, where it can hum softly in the background, where your intention doesn't need to shout, because it already lives. And when your eyes fall upon it in the days to come, don't ask for more. Just breathe. And remember, the energy has already begun. What part of this ritual spoke to your heart the most? Was it the breath? The coin? The knowing? Tell me below. Not because I need to know, but because typing it seals it in you. I energize what I welcome. I release what no longer aligns. And I now move with the quiet power of wealth already flowing. The first sign that your salt ritual is working isn't loud. It's not obvious. It's not money dropping at your door. It's something far more subtle, but deeply sacred. Your space begins to breathe again. You walk into your kitchen, and somehow it feels easier to be there. No clutter, no noise, but something has softened. You sit in your living room, and you realize you're not as tense. The silence doesn't feel heavy anymore. It feels alive. You don't fight with your partner as often. The edge in your voice fades. Your children play more gently. You laugh just once, but it comes out without force. You didn't plan it, but it felt good. At work, the resistance starts to ease. That one project you've been avoiding? Suddenly, it doesn't feel impossible. You answer emails quicker. Ideas come easier. Deadlines feel softer. You're not manifesting money yet, but the current that blocked your life has started to shift. In Feng Shui, this is not random. It's the breath of qi returning. Salt, once awakened, doesn't just cleanse the air, it reorganizes the emotional weight in your space. It releases what's been stuck in the energy field, the quiet stress you didn't have words for. And modern science now echoes this. Salt can change ionic frequency, affect subtle moisture, rebalance electric charge in a room. But ancient wisdom said it more beautifully. When the air feels lighter, your life will begin to move again. So if lately your home feels softer, your mood less heavy, your breath deeper, and the way you relate to others has started to feel warmer, easier, then pause. Let yourself feel it. That's not just life getting better. That's your ritual starting to speak back. Wealth doesn't always enter through the door. Sometimes it enters through the atmosphere. And when your space breathes again, prosperity can finally find a place to land. Let's move on, because the second sign is when money itself starts whispering back. The second sign that your salt ritual is working is this: opportunities begin to return, not loudly, not all at once, but quietly, like old doors unlocking. From the other side, you might get an email from a client you thought had vanished. Someone who owed you suddenly pays back. A job offer you forgot about shows up again. No fireworks, no big announcement, just a slow hum of energy starting to move. That deal that stalled, it inches forward. That conversation that went cold, it warms again. You may think it's coincidence, but in Feng Shui, this is what happens. When qi starts clearing the blockages around money flow, salt, when placed with intention, doesn't just absorb negative energy. It rebalances energetic permission. It clears the emotional static between you and what's been trying to reach you. Because prosperity doesn't chase you. It waits for clarity. It waits for space. And when your space says, "I'm ready," the world begins to listen. Salt makes space speak. And here's what most people don't realize. Wealth is responsive. It echoes you. When you soften, it returns. When you align, it responds. And science? Even that agrees. Salt crystals hold memory. They can vibrate. They respond to charge, sound, breath. In a way, they listen. So maybe what you're noticing isn't just something coming back. Maybe it's a conversation that was always waiting for you to open again. That project, that person, that payment, that idea, they didn't disappear. They paused, and now they're returning, not because of luck, but because your ritual created space for them to flow again. Pause here. Notice what's been circling back lately, and ask yourself, is this what I thought I lost? Or maybe you simply made room for what never left. Let's keep going, because the third sign doesn't come from outside. It rises from within. The third sign, your salt ritual is working, is this. Your emotions begin to change without you trying. Not through journaling, not through meditation, not even through intention. Just softly, suddenly, unexpectedly. You wake up one morning and the anxiety is lighter. The overthinking, less sharp. The tightness in your chest that's been living there for weeks, gone, like it just stepped out while you were sleeping. You might not even notice it at first, until you realize you didn't react the same way you usually do. That thing that used to trigger you didn't land. That voice that used to race through your head fell quiet. I remember a woman named Thao. She'd done the salt ritual 3 nights in a row. No big expectations. Just followed the breath, the whisper, the placement. And on the 4th morning, she told me this. It was the first day I didn't hate my phone. I opened my emails without dread. I didn't snap at my son for dropping a spoon. And I looked in the mirror and didn't feel heavy. She didn't win the lottery. She didn't manifest millions. But she shifted. And that shift created space for everything else. Because in Feng Shui, your emotions are part of your space. They hang in the walls. They echo in the hallway. They linger in the air. When salt is activated, it doesn't just work on the room. It works on your field. It pulls static out of the emotional atmosphere. And when that weight is lifted, you return to clarity. Not by force, but by flow. Even science supports this now. Studies show salt lamps reduce cortisol. Negative ions rebalance mood. Crystals respond to intention. You're not imagining it. Your ritual isn't just working around you. It's working through you. So if you felt a moment lately where you paused before reacting, where you softened without knowing why, where your breath came easier, that wasn't just self-regulation. That was the ritual living inside you. Let yourself honor that. Because wealth doesn't just flow through money. It flows through emotional readiness. And when your energy no longer leaks into worry, prosperity finally knows where to land. Let's move on. Because the 4th sign isn't felt inside. It's seen in the way the world starts shifting around you. If you felt this shift, even once, in your breath, your mood, your space, then you've already started the quietest kind of transformation. So pause here and tell me, what emotion have you released? Without trying, comment it below. Write it like a small offering, a whisper into the ritual itself. Because sometimes, when we name what has lifted, we invite more light to follow. The 4th sign that your salt ritual is working is this. Something shifts outside of you. Not huge, not loud, but unmistakably aligned. You find a bill. If you forgot was overdue, and it turns out already paid. You check your email, and a message you've been waiting for is just sitting there. Someone offers to treat you to lunch, or a gift arrives from someone you didn't expect anything from. You start the day with hesitation, but somehow everything goes smoother than planned. Nothing grand, but everything clicks. What's truly powerful is not what happened, but how it made you feel. Not surprised, not overwhelmed, just clear. This makes sense, even though I didn't ask for it. That feeling is a key. I once had a woman named Isabel message me after placing her salt bowl near the entrance of her apartment. She said, the next morning, a neighbor I'd never spoken to handed me a sealed envelope, said it was delivered to their door by mistake. Inside was a bonus check for my old freelance job that I didn't know was coming. But what struck her most wasn't the money, it was her reaction. She said, I smiled, but I wasn't shocked. I felt like something was finally responding back. This is how salt moves. In Feng Shui, the outer world is never separate from your inner state. Salt, when awakened, creates a field of readiness, a gentle magnet for right timing, and energy is always listening. When your ritual is clear, your space becomes a transmitter, not of desperation, but of alignment. The world doesn't need to be pushed. It needs to be invited. And you're inviting without even trying. Even in physics, this is called field coherence. When your space stabilizes, the waves around you begin to organize. Money finds flow. People find you. Things click back into place. Not forced. Not begged for. Just returned. So if you've noticed lately that things are arriving without you chasing, pay attention. You didn't make it happen. You became available for it. That's a different kind of power. That's the kind that lasts. Let's continue, because the final sign isn't something that shows up. It's something you begin to carry. And once it arrives, nothing in your field will ever quite feel the same. The fifth sign, your salt ritual is working, is also the quietest. It's the one no one else sees, because it doesn't appear in your bank account, or in your inbox, or in the outer world at all. It shows up in the way you now carry energy. You no longer ask, when will it happen? You begin to ask, how do I hold space for more? You stop reaching. You start preparing. You're no longer performing a ritual. You're embodying one. You walk differently, not to show off, but because you're not leaking energy anymore. You speak less, but with more weight. Not heavy, just real. Your words feel placed, not scattered. And when you touch the salt bowl, you no longer ask for anything. You simply acknowledge, this is already in motion. I've already entered the stream. That is the shift. That is the sign. I once met a man in Chiang Mai. He didn't say much, just watched. At his door, there was a small bowl of salt and one coin, perfectly centered. I asked him once, what do you use it for? He said, I don't use it. I let it hold what I no longer need, and I hold what calls me forward. That line stayed with me, because it described exactly what the final stage of this ritual feels like. You no longer see salt as a cure. You see it as a companion, a mirror, a message. In Feng Shui, there's a saying, the master of energy is not the one who calls qi. but the one who becomes still enough to be chosen by it. When your ritual has worked, you begin to feel chosen by peace, by clarity, by flow, and from that state, wealth doesn't feel far. It feels like something that's always been circling and has finally found its signal. Modern science might call this nervous system regulation, coherence, alpha wave stability. But in your body, you'll just feel, I'm home, I'm aligned, I'm no longer waiting. So if lately you've stopped forcing, stopped searching, and started listening, that's not you giving up. That's you tuning in. If your rituals feel quieter, but your heart feels fuller, then you've moved from seeker to source. And that is the final sign. Not that your ritual is working, but that it has become a part of who you are. And from here on, wealth doesn't need to be summoned. It will come to rest where it's been welcomed. Let yourself sit with this, because the closing of a ritual is not an ending. It's a return to presence, to flow, to the invitation you've quietly become. In Feng Shui, everything begins with one thing: qi. You may have heard the word, you may have felt it, without knowing its name. Qi is not a belief. It's a flow, a frequency, a quiet current that lives in every room, every breath, every body. When the ancient masters observed the land, they didn't just look for structure. They listened for movement. Where does the wind rest? Where does light curve? Where does the energy gather? And where does it stall? Because in Feng Shui, qi is the river of life force that moves through every space. And wealth? Wealth is simply qi in motion that carries value. When qi is blocked, value gets stuck. Money delays. Tension grows. Everything feels heavy, even if nothing looks wrong. Salt doesn't create qi. It clears the path for it, like opening a stream that was covered by dust. And once qi moves again, the air feels lighter. Ideas return, opportunities knock, and prosperity finds a current to ride on. So if your ritual has worked, what you've truly done is not summon something new. You've simply remembered how to let life flow again. That is qi, and that is wealth. We've walked through 5 quiet signs that your ritual is working, not as a performance, but as a shift, a soft remembering of how energy moves. When you become still enough to feel it, maybe your space has changed. Maybe your body feels lighter. Maybe your wealth has already returned, but in a form you didn't expect. So pause now and ask gently, which sign has visited you already? Or which one do you feel quietly unfolding? Share it below, not as a comment, but as a note to your own energy. Let this space become your mirror, a place where your ritual continues to echo. If this video stirred something inside you, even just one breath, then that's not by chance. Because in Feng Shui, every shift begins with one moment, presence. So stay with it, watch again, or explore the earlier salt rituals. Each one holds a piece of the river you've just begun to open. Like, share, whisper back, and if you feel ready, say it softly, in the comments, in your room, or just in your chest. I choose flow. I welcome chi, and I open the space for wealth to return. The first sign that your wealth ritual is fading is this. The salt has gone silent. It doesn't call. It doesn't feel alive. It just sits. At first, it was luminous, like it breathed with your space. But now, it looks the same. It feels different. The air around it is still, but not calm. The room is clean, but not bright. The energy isn't bad, but it's not moving. And inside you might begin to feel it too. A dullness, a slow resistance, work that flows, but doesn't finish. Ideas that arrive, but dissolve. In Feng Shui, this isn't random. Salt has a cycle. Once it absorbs what no longer serves, it must be released. If not, the same salt that cleansed your space begins to hold it hostage. Just like lungs can't hold one breath forever, your salt can't carry energy. Without renewal, you might look at the bowl and think it's still white, still clean, looks fine, but energy doesn't always show on the surface. Look deeper. Is the salt clumping, turning slightly gray, yellow, or moist? Is the coin you placed losing its shine? Most importantly, has the atmosphere of the room stopped shifting? Has the light gone flat? The chi line you once felt, where wind used to cross, now feels blocked? That's not your life. That's your salt, calling quietly to be awakened again. I once stayed in a friend's home. She had placed a salt bowl near her desk 3 months ago. She did it right. The intention, the breath, the placement, but she never touched it again. When I walked into the room, it felt like a thought half finished, like the air had been paused mid-sentence. And when I picked up the bowl, the salt was still white, but the energy was heavy, dry, yet clogged. She told me, "Lately I've felt stuck, like I know what I need to do, but can't move." And I whispered, "So does your salt. This is the thing no one tells you. Salt doesn't look expired until you listen to it. And by the time you feel the block, it's already been holding too much for too long." Modern energy theory confirms this. Salt crystal structures shift over time as they absorb ions, moisture, and emotional frequency. And once saturated, they don't just stop absorbing, they start releasing what they held. That's why you don't just feel stuck, you feel surrounded by an old version of yourself you thought you had already cleared. So pause, breathe, look around. Has the room gone flat? Has the salt gone still? If so, this isn't a failure. It's an invitation, a signal that your space is ready to be remembered again. Let's continue, because now that you've seen the signs of energetic exhaustion, we'll learn how to bring your ritual back to life. If your salt has gone still, you don't replace it in a rush. You don't throw away a sacred object like trash. You return it with presence, with rhythm, with reverence, because salt needs to breathe with you. In Feng Shui, everything moves in cycles. There's a rhythm to energy, a pulse to every ritual. And just like the moon, your salt works best when honored in phases. So how often should you renew it? It depends on what kind of space you're in. 7 days if your home holds heavy activity, conflict, emotional shifts, guests, or intense work. Pardon 6. 14 days, balanced homes, quiet, aligned, but still in motion. 21. 30 days, for sacred, stable spaces, where flow has already returned and stayed consistent. But there's more important than the number. You must feel the shift. Don't just watch the calendar. Watch your space. Watch your energy. Ask gently, is the salt still listening? Has the chi slowed again? Am I acting or aligning? When it's time to renew, don't just switch the bowl. Move slowly. Let the space know you're beginning again. Ritual to renew salt, step-by-step whisper. 1. Pick the right time. Morning is best. Dawn is sacred. The first light carries renewal. Before the world speaks, you invite clarity. 2. Remove the old salt gently. Don't dump it. Whisper, thank you for holding what I no longer need. Place it into flowing water or return it to the earth. Let it go with grace. 3. Clean the bowl. Rinse with warm water. Wipe with a cloth that feels soft in your hand. Not to polish, but to reset the space. 4. Add new salt with awareness. Let it fall like snow. Let your presence guide the flow. No rushing, no pouring, just placing. 5. Whisper your breath again. You don't need new wishes. You need new presence. Let the salt feel your readiness. With this bowl, I renew my flow. With this breath, I invite wealth to return. Place the salt back mindfully, either at the same location or at a new place that now feels alive. Feel for the chi line. You'll know it. It's where the light lingers, just a second longer. Why do all this? Because ritual is not about routine. It's about rhythm, about reminding your space. I am still listening. I am still choosing. And salt, when renewed like this, becomes not just a purifier, but a pulse that keeps your wealth energy awake. So mark your cycle, not in your calendar, but in your awareness, because when you miss the rhythm, the ritual becomes background noise. But when you move with it, your entire space becomes a living invitation for abundance to stay. Let's continue, because even with the right cycle, some habits quietly block the flow without you knowing. Next, we'll look into the silent mistakes people make when trying to keep the ritual alive, and why repetition without awareness can reverse everything. Ritual is not about what you do once. It's about what you're willing to return to. Because wealth doesn't stay in spaces we forget. It stays in places we remember to care for. The salt doesn't ask for more action. It asks for more presence, more rhythm, more listening. Every time you return to it, you're not just renewing the salt. You're renewing your relationship with the energy that carries abundance. And when that relationship is nurtured, quietly, gently, rhythmically, wealth knows it has a home to return to. Let's keep going, because even when you try to do it right, there are habits that quietly block the flow without you realizing. If you've ever done the ritual and then forgot it, you're not alone. But the fact that you're here means something in you. I want to remember again. So tell me, when was the last time you renewed your salt? Or maybe What sign will you watch for? To know it's time? Write it below. Not just to comment, but to continue the rhythm, to whisper back into your own ritual. Because when you share your moment of return, you don't just speak, you help the energy breathe again. You want to keep the ritual alive, so you repeat it. Every 7 days, every 14, you clean the bowl, you replace the salt, but something feels off. It doesn't feel sacred anymore. It feels like a checklist, a routine, a background habit you do while thinking about other things. And that is the first silent mistake. Mistake 1. Repetition without presence. Rituals don't work because you follow steps. They work because you show up. Without energy, repetition becomes decay, like watering a plant without looking at it. Your hands move, but your chi doesn't arrive. Mistake 2. Replacing the salt without releasing it. You remove the salt. You throw it in the trash. You forget to say thank you. You forget to say goodbye. But in Feng Shui, everything holds memory. And if you discard something that has held your energy without closure, you risk keeping its weight somewhere in the room. The ritual isn't just in what you bring in. It's in how you let go. Salt that has served you deserves to be released with grace, or else some of what it carried may linger in your field. Mistake 3. Moving the salt to a new spot without asking the energy. You cleanse. You feel good. You think, let me try this other corner. But you never pause to feel the chi line. Never notice whether that part of the room wants to hold energy or is just convenient. And suddenly, the salt stops listening because it was placed without consultation, without alignment. I once guided a woman named Arya who had been doing the ritual every week. She said, "It's clean, it's constant, but something feels flat." I asked her one question. "Do you feel anything when you place the bowl down?" She paused, then said, "Number. I'm always thinking about groceries or my inbox." That was her shift. The day she stopped repeating and started remembering again. Because here's the truth. Even sacred rituals to become dull when we stop bringing ourselves into them. Salt doesn't just ask to be used. It asks to be witnessed, to be felt, to be part of a living relationship. So if you've made these mistakes, don't worry. It doesn't undo what you've built. It only means your ritual is ready to feel you again. And now that you know what not to do, let's explore how to bring your salt back to life. Not just through steps, but through presence. The salt responds to where you place it. But more than that, it responds to what you place into it. And the most powerful energy you can offer is not your words, not even your breath. It's your attention, your conscious presence. Your salt holds chi, but your mind is the gatekeeper. When you place salt without awareness, it stays hollow, but when you place it with full intention, even silently, you create an energetic imprint that no ritual can replace. Your thoughts, your focus, your inner stillness are what awaken the salt and tell it what to carry. So if you want your ritual to work at its highest level, don't just change the salt, change the way you bring your mind to meet it. That is the key that opens the flow. Most people think a ritual only lives in the moment you light the candle or whisper the words. But real power comes from what you do after the ritual is done, what you return to, what you notice, and how you stay. You don't need 20 minutes. You don't need incense. You don't even need to speak. You need to care. And that care must be felt by the salt. Each morning, as you pass by the bowl, pause, stop, let your hand rest just above it, not touching, just sensing. You'll feel it if you're still enough. A faint coolness, a hum, a quiet invitation. That is your salt waiting to be seen again. Take one breath, not just for oxygen, but to bring your mind back into your body. Because energy doesn't flow when your thoughts are in 10 places. It flows when all of you arrives in one. Let that breath settle, then exhale it gently over the bowl. Don't blow, just offer. Let your chi move from your chest into the crystals. This is not superstition. It's entrainment. The salt mirrors your state. If you are scattered, it becomes cloudy. If you are grounded, it stabilizes the space. Now, whisper something simple, not for the universe, not to manifest, just to remind the ritual that it still matters to you. Stay awake. Keep the flow open. I see you. These aren't spells. They're connections. They're what keep your home's chi from falling asleep again. Because chi is like a river. It doesn't flood when summoned. It arrives when space says, I'm still ready. And you, with this tiny act of return, I say just that. I once knew a woman who said, the days I don't speak to my salt, I feel like money forgets me too. But it wasn't about money. It was about memory. She had trained her home to respond to her presence. And when her presence disappeared, so did the pulse. So if you want wealth, not just to arrive, but to stay, I don't ask for more. Ask deeper. Ask, have I been here lately? Did I look at the salt, or just walk past it? Did I breathe, or just exist? Your ritual doesn't need to be repeated. It needs to be fed, with presence, with breath, with a moment of real return. And if you do this, even for 30 seconds a day, your home will begin to remember. Your field will stay awake, and the wealth will never need to be asked for again. Let's continue. Because even presence has a cycle, and when the time comes to say goodbye to your salt, you'll need to know how to let go without undoing what you've built. You've tended to your salt. You've spoken to it. You've fed it with breath and presence. But now, a quiet shift is asking to happen. Because even sacred energy has a life cycle. And when a ritual has done its work, it must be released. So how do you know? When the time has come, it's not just about color, or clumping, or the days on the calendar. It's a feeling. The room feels slightly off. The air feels heavier, but not dark. Your thoughts move slower. Your sleep doesn't land the same. This is not a failure. It's an invitation. Your salt has done its work. It has absorbed. It has protected. And now, It's full, but don't just toss it. Don't forget it. Salt is a witness. It has held what you no longer could, and it deserves a return that honors what it held. So, here is the ritual of release. Pause. Stand before the bowl. Place both hands around it. Close your eyes. Breathe. Let one breath move through your chest and out toward the salt. Whisper, not as a spell, as a thank you. Thank you for holding. Thank you for serving. I release you now, with grace. Return it to the earth, beneath a tree, into flowing water. Not the trash, not the drain. Give it back to something that breathes. Let it become part of the earth's cycle again, so your own cycle can stay clean. This act is more than a gesture. It is the final movement of energy that has served you being released, so it does not turn stale. Because in Feng Shui, what is not released becomes what is blocked, and even the most sacred object can begin to leak heaviness if we keep it beyond its purpose. Once you've let it go, don't rush to fill the bowl again. Let the space sit, empty, quiet. Let it breathe before something new arrives. And when you do bring in new salt, bring it with clarity, with softness, with readiness. Because wealth doesn't just flow where you place salt. It flows where you create space for something new to begin. You've now learned how to place, how to care, how to renew, and how to let go. But there's one last key. We've only whispered so far. What if salt was only one part of the flow? What if there are other elements that could amplify everything you've already opened? Let's go there, just for a moment. You've come a long way, not just in this video, but through the entire journey of remembering what salt can truly hold. You've seen how a simple mineral can carry presence, intention, cycles, flow. You've placed it, spoken to it, renewed it, released it, and now you've learned how to keep it alive. This was never about superstition. It was never about luck. It was always about energy and your willingness to tend to it. Because the truth is, wealth doesn't respond to what you do once. It responds to what you continue to honor quietly. So if this video reminded you of something you forgot or awakened something deeper you didn't know you carried, that's not an accident. That's energy responding. If this stirred something still inside you, a calm knowing, a quiet readiness, in Feng Shui, the way you treat small things becomes the pattern for everything larger. And when you honor the salt, you teach your life how to hold wealth gently. So comment below, not just what you learned, but what you'll keep alive. Tell me, what part of this ritual will you carry into tomorrow? Or simply write, I choose to stay awake. Say it softly, in your heart, in your home, or in the dark room before sleep. I choose rhythm. I choose care. I choose to be the space that wealth quietly returns to. Thank you for staying until the very end. Not many do, but those who do have already begun to change the field around them. I see you, and I trust your salt does too. You've come a long way, not just in this video, but through the entire journey of remembering what salt can truly hold. You've seen how a simple mineral can carry presence, intention, cycles, flow. You've placed it, spoken to it, renewed it, released it, and now you've learned how to keep it alive. This was never about superstition. It was never about luck. It was always about energy and your willingness to tend to it. Because the truth is, wealth doesn't respond to what you do once. It responds to what you continue to honor quietly. Pause, light breath. So if this video reminded you of something you forgot or awakened something deeper you didn't know you carried, that's not an accident. That's energy responding. Trigger. If this stirred something still inside you, a calm knowing, a quiet readiness, logic. In Feng Shui, the way you treat small things becomes the pattern for everything larger. And when you honor the salt, you teach your life how to hold wealth gently, prompt. So, comment below. Not just what you learned, but what you'll keep alive. Tell me, what part of this ritual will you carry into tomorrow? Or simply write, I choose to stay awake. Affirmation. Say it softly, in your heart, in your home, or in the dark room before sleep. I choose rhythm. I choose care. I choose to be the space that wealth quietly returns to. Thank you for staying until the very end. Not many do, but those who do have already begun to change the field around them. I see you, and I trust your salt does too. You bought salt, you placed it, and you thought, that's it, that's all I need. But if salt holds memory, then what has your salt remembered before it even met you? Most salt sold in stores isn't made for energy work. It's processed, refined, bleached. It's been handled by machines, packed in plastic, stored in warehouses for months. It may be clean on the outside, but inside, the crystal is full of noise. Most people see salt as something physical, a grain, a mineral, something dry and simple. But in energy work, especially in Feng Shui, salt isn't just what you see, it's what it holds. Salt is a crystalline substance. That means every grain has a structure, a lattice that can store vibration. Think of it like a room with no windows, but perfect memory. Whatever enters, stays, until someone opens the door and clears the air. That's how salt works. It remembers. It records. It absorbs everything it touches. The energy of the hands that packed it, the noise of the machines that shaped it, the silence of factory shelves. Even when you can't see it, the salt remembers. That's why ancient traditions never used salt straight from the bag. They passed it through smoke, through sunlight, through whisper and breath. Because if you skip that step, you're not working with clean salt. You're working with someone else's leftover energy. And when you place that into your home, your most sacred space, the salt doesn't just sit there. It keeps releasing the energy it's been holding, quietly, constantly. Instead of purifying your room, it begins to rewrite it. Modern science calls this crystal lattice resonance. It's why salt reacts to humidity, to sound, to light. And in Feng Shui, we've known this long before science gave it a name. Because when salt is full of foreign qi, it doesn't purify your space. It clouds it. So you placed your salt in the corner, hoping it would guard your wealth. But if the salt was never cleansed, if it carried static from factories, hands, plastic wrap, then what it absorbed might still be humming in your home right now. A quiet fog, one you can't see, but feel. How many rituals have you done with salt that never truly listened to you? Not because you didn't mean well, but because the salt was never ready. So what happens when this kind of salt sits in your home for days, weeks, even months? In the next part, we'll explore how dead salt doesn't just fail to help, it begins to block, and how that block might be the reason your wealth hasn't been arriving. Salt doesn't choose what it absorbs, it just takes. And if the energy it holds isn't yours, then the space it protects may not be yours either. We think of salt as a purifier, but even purifiers need to be reset. Because when salt absorbs too much, or absorbs the wrong energy, it doesn't just stop working, it begins to push back. In Feng Shui, qi is like breath. It moves through your space. Soft, steady, unseen. When you place activated salt in the right spot, it filters that breath. It clears the air. But when you place unawakened, oversaturated salt, something shifts. The salt doesn't just absorb negativity, it holds it. And over time, it begins to leak back into your space. Not with drama, but with dullness. You won't see it in the air. You'll feel it in your body, in your mind, in your flow. The salt becomes heavy. The energy becomes still. And stillness, when it overstays, becomes stagnation. This isn't just spiritual belief, it's energetic logic. You'll start noticing signs, waking up feeling tired even after sleeping long hours. Money arrives, but disappears quickly. Motivation fades, projects stall. A fog in the mind, like you're always 2 steps behind yourself. These are not random. They're what happens when the energy in your space begins to move in circles and never leaves. So that bowl of salt you placed with good intentions might now be quietly looping old vibrations through your home. You meant to create protection, but what you created was a holding zone for energy that should have been released. Have you been feeling stuck without knowing why? Not broken, just heavy. Maybe it's not you. Maybe it's the salt, still carrying what should have left long ago. But here's the good news. You don't have to throw it away. You don't have to buy something new. In the next part, I'll show you how to take that same bowl and bring it back to life. We'll cleanse it, reawaken it, and finally, let it carry your energy, not someone else's. Not all salt starts in the same state, and if you don't know what yours has been through, you might be starting your ritual with something that's not ready to help. A lot of people think, just buy Himalayan salt. That's the best one, right? But even the purest crystal can carry static if it's been sitting in silence too long. And even sea salt, full of natural minerals, can hold the energy of ports, packaging, and pollution. Let's break it down. The salt isn't bad or good. Let's talk about the kinds of salt people usually use. First, there's table salt, the kind that comes in a big white container, maybe wrapped in plastic. It's refined, sterile. It's been stripped of minerals and memory. This salt was made for flavor, not energy. It might look clean, but it's energetically flat, almost hollow. Then there's natural sea salt. More raw, more textured. It still carries something of the ocean, but also the journey it took to reach your home. Warehouses, ships, markets. That's a lot of energy for a small crystal to hold. Next is Himalayan pink salt. It's beautiful and old. The structure is stable, formed deep in the earth. And yes, its vibration is naturally calm. But even so, when it's been sitting in a store for months, it can forget what it was meant to do. And finally, there's ritual salt, the kind someone has already cleansed, charged, whispered into. That one's ready. But even then, I always whisper into it myself, because no matter where the salt came from, it needs to know where it's going. I've worked with clients who used the fanciest salt they could find, but nothing shifted. And I've seen people awaken basic sea salt with breath, sunlight, and whisper, and watch their entire space change within days. If you place salt without knowing where it came from, or what it's been holding, you're placing energy into a container that may already be full. That's not spiritual. That's just like pouring clean water into a dirty cup. Take a moment. Think about the salt in your home right now. Do you know its journey? Has it been touched by light, by breath, by your presence? If not, don't worry. You don't have to throw it away. You just have to begin again. In the next part, I'll guide you through a simple ritual to reset your salt, clear what it holds, and realign it with the wealth that's trying to find you. You don't need better salt. You just need to begin again. Most people throw out the old salt when it doesn't work. But in Feng Shui, we don't discard. We cleanse. We realign. We remember. Here's how to awaken the salt you already have. Step 1. Let it touch light. Salt absorbs. But what it absorbs stays. And before you placed it in your home, your salt likely absorbed factory air, plastic silence, even human hands rushing through machines. Light, especially early morning light, has a cleansing frequency. In energy studies, we know sunlight carries a spectrum that breaks up stagnant ions. But more than that, in Feng Shui, the morning is when qi is fresh. It hasn't yet been influenced by the world's noise. So when you place your salt in soft daylight, you're not just lighting it up, you're letting it breathe. You're letting nature reorganize its field, like rinsing the soul of the crystal without touching a single grain. Step 2. Stir it with sound. Once the light has entered, you need to move the energy. Salt is a crystal, and crystals are known to vibrate in response to sound. Even a gentle bell, a tuning fork, or your own voice create small waves that ripple through the salt's lattice. In science, this is called resonance activation. In spiritual practice, it's a reset. Why does it matter? Because stagnant salt may have formed microblocks, energy patterns clumped and stiff, and sound, especially clear, high tones, breaks up these hidden blocks. It's like shaking the dust out of an old rug, but the dust is invisible, and the rug is your wealth field. Step 3. Breathe into it with intention. Light clears. Sound moves. But breath connects. In Feng Shui, breath is your personal qi. It's the one thing you carry that is always alive. When you exhale slowly over the salt, not to blow, but to offer, you are transferring part of your living frequency. into this sleeping structure. It's like saying, "Now, you work for me. Now, you remember who placed you here." And the whisper that follows? That's not superstition. That's an energetic agreement. Together, these 3 steps, light, sound, breath, reformat the salt's internal pattern, from holding random noise to carrying intentional energy. That's the difference between placing salt and placing a living ritual. And if you ask me, after all this time, all these rituals, all the energy shifts I've seen, I still believe that sea salt is the one I trust most. Real, raw sea salt, harvested by hand, dried under the sun, still holds the memory of water, of movement, of flow. And in Feng Shui, that's everything. If you ever have the chance, the access, the space to choose, I'd say choose sea salt. Not because it's trendy, but because it knows how to breathe. Salt has structure. That structure records vibration. When you bring light, sound, and breath together, you reset that structure. Even modern science knows. Salt crystals shift under electromagnetic fields, and intention is your field. I know what it feels like to do everything right. Place the salt, say the words, wait for something to shift, and feel nothing. The room stays heavy. The thoughts still loop. The flow doesn't come. And you wonder, is it me? Is it blocked for a reason I don't understand? But sometimes, it's not you. It's not your wish. It's the salt. It was never activated, never cleansed, never awakened enough to carry what you asked of it. That moment, I realized this for myself. It changed everything. I stopped blaming myself. I stopped searching for the perfect ritual. I just slowed down. I brought the salt to the window. I rang the bell. I breathed into it, not as a task, but as a return. And something opened. Not loud, not dramatic, but real. Like the room remembered me again. So if you've been feeling stuck, lost in routines that don't bring results, maybe it's not about starting over. Maybe it's about coming back to the salt you already placed. And finally, letting it hear you. Now that your salt is clean, now that it carries your breath, your voice, you don't need to keep asking for more. In the next part, we'll talk about what happens when salt becomes more than a ritual. It becomes a presence. There comes a moment when salt stops being a ritual and starts becoming a presence. It no longer feels like a thing you placed. It feels like something that's with you, watching, holding, quietly humming in the background. You pass by it in the morning, and it gives a kind of stillness to your steps. You speak your affirmations, and somehow they land deeper. You're no longer hoping the salt will work. You know the field is listening. At this point, you stop asking for wealth to come. You start holding space for it to arrive. And when you touch the salt, you don't plead. You just nod, as if to say, "We're ready." It was a time I reset a bowl of salt and placed it by the east-facing window. I had done everything right, cleansed it in morning light, rang the bell, whispered into it with full presence, and then I left it there. I didn't stare at it. I didn't hope or force or ask again. I just let it be. Every morning, I walked past it. Sometimes I'd pause for a breath. Sometimes I didn't. I never said, "Bring me money." I never said, "Fix this now." I just whispered, "I see you." 21 days passed. On the 22nd day, an old client I hadn't heard from in 6 months emailed me. That afternoon, a friend who owed me money sent it back. And the next morning, I woke up feeling different. Not euphoric, not like I'd won the lottery, just light. Like the air had started moving again, like the house had exhaled. And the salt? It hadn't changed color. It didn't glow, but it felt alive, like it had done its job, without a single word, just by being seen and being left to remember. Maybe the salt didn't shift your life. Maybe you shifted into someone who no longer chased wealth, but became the field where wealth could land. Quietly, naturally, without force. And maybe that's what this was all along. Not a trick, not a superstition, but a way to come back to the stillness that calls abundance home. If something stirred in you tonight, even just for a moment, a breath, a pause, a quiet knowing, then it wasn't by chance. You were ready, and your space has already begun to shift. In Feng Shui, even the smallest objects hold memory, and the way we treat them becomes the way we shape our world. You didn't just cleanse a bowl of salt tonight. You remembered that wealth doesn't respond to noise. It responds to presence. So tell me, what part of this ritual will you carry forward? Was it the light? The breath? The moment you stopped asking and simply began to see your space again? Or just write, "I choose to awaken what I place." That one sentence might be all it takes to seal your shift. I don't place out of habit. I place with awareness. I don't wait for wealth. I welcome it softly. I don't rush energy. I awaken it with light, with breath, with stillness. You placed salt to attract wealth, but what if it's actually been pulling it away? Salt is known to purify, to absorb what's heavy, but that's the thing. Salt doesn't filter. It absorbs everything, the bad and the good. In Feng Shui, there are places where energy should be gathered, not filtered, not pulled, but held. We call these zones wealth centers, usually found in the southeast of your space. This is where qi settles, where prosperity forms a root. But if you place salt too close to this zone, near your safe, your wallet drawer, your financial altar, then instead of protection, you've placed a leak, because salt absorbs. And when it's near the one place where you want energy to stay, it pulls that energy away. But if you've done this, if your salt has been sitting beside your wealth, don't blame yourself. You weren't wrong. You were just missing one piece. Because no one tells us this part. No one says, salt doesn't choose what it absorbs. But now you know. And that means you can change the pattern. You may have felt it before. Money comes in, but disappears quickly. Business feels active, but somehow profit doesn't stick. Your space looks organized, but it doesn't feel abundant. It's subtle, but qi moves subtly too. And if salt is absorbing the very energy you're trying to grow, you won't feel blocked. You'll feel slowly drained. It's not that the salt failed, it's that it was placed where it could never serve your intention. And the longer it stays there, the more your wealth field gets filtered instead of fortified. Take a look around your space. Where's your salt right now? Is it near your cash box, your investment papers, the place where you hold value? If so, it's not too late. But it is a call to realign. Next, we'll look at the places people often place salt with the best of intentions, but the worst energetic outcome. You placed it near your wallet, your coin box, your safe, thinking, this is where I want the energy strong, so the salt will guard it. It makes sense, doesn't it? If salt protects, why not place it near what matters most? But here's the quiet truth. Salt doesn't protect by standing guard. It protects by pulling. And when you place it right next to your wealth, it pulls from there. I've seen salt bowls on top of safes, inside cash drawers, beside sacred money jars. I've seen them hidden in wallets, on altars surrounded by coins, all with good intentions. But the more I observed, the more I realized the chi wasn't flowing, it was scattering. There was a woman I worked with. Her name was Eliza. She ran a small crystal shop. Nothing fancy, just love, care, and energy in every shelf. One day, someone told her, place a bowl of salt next to your money drawer. It'll protect the flow. So she did. A beautiful white bowl, full of sea salt, and one shiny coin in the center. She placed it on top of her cash box, right where she kept the day's earnings. And at first, things were fine. But after 2 weeks, she told me, people still come, I still sell, but somehow, I'm always behind. Like money walks in and walks out. Nothing settles. It's like I'm chasing breath. I asked her, where does your salt sit? She blinked, like no one had ever asked her that. It's right on top of the cash box, she said. I nodded, and then gently, I asked her to move it, just 3 feet away, to a shelf across the room, near the entrance. She didn't do anything else. No spell, no prayer, just moved it. 2 weeks later, she messaged me. Asterisk. It's strange. I've had the same number of clients, same products, same hours, but now there's always something left over, and I don't feel like I'm leaking anymore. Asterisk. When salt sits too close to your money center, it doesn't scream. It doesn't destroy. It just interrupts. The wealth, energy, or chi that was trying to gather begins to wobble, to scatter. Why? Because salt's crystalline lattice isn't passive. It's dynamic. Studies in ion field behavior show salt doesn't just absorb moisture. It interacts with the electromagnetic field around it. It pulls in ions. It stabilizes charge. It shifts frequency. And when you place salt beside your wealth zone, a space designed to accumulate and hold steady chi, you introduce a constant pulling field. It's like setting up a mini vortex. In the middle of a still pond, the water doesn't vanish, but it never settles. In practical terms, it means money doesn't stay. Ideas feel busy, but never land. Plans form, but shift direction before grounding. And the worst part? It feels normal, because it's not dramatic. It's subtle, just enough to keep you from reaching stable flow. So ask yourself, where does your salt sit right now? And what has it been touching, without you even noticing? Next, we'll go deeper. Because if some places pull wealth away, others were made to hold it. Let me show you how to find your true money corner. Every home has a place where wealth wants to rest, a corner that calls in prosperity and quietly asks us to protect it. But most people never find it. They decorate, they cleanse, they place their hopes in the center. But the money chi, it gathers quietly, often in one forgotten place. So, how do you find your wealth zone? It's easier than you think. Stand at the main door of your home, the one you usually enter through. Face inside. Now look to the far left corner of the space in front of you. That's your wealth area. Not just symbolically, but energetically. In Feng Shui, that's the spot where qi related to prosperity tends to gather and settle. It might be a corner in your living room, a quiet part of your kitchen, even the far left corner of a studio apartment. I once guided someone who lived in a tiny one-bedroom. She stood at her entrance, looked to the far left, and realized it was her laundry basket. She never thought about it before. That corner had always felt off. So we cleared it, added a small plant, a piece of citrine, and a gold-framed affirmation. 2 weeks later, she messaged me. I didn't even change anything else, but I feel lighter. Work has been flowing. I'm not sure how, but I feel supported again. That's the power of placement. And that's why salt, which absorbs, pulls, and dissolves, should never sit there. You'll know you've found it because it feels still. Light lingers there. Objects placed there tend to settle. It's the space that doesn't need to be busy, just respected. And in energy terms, it's like a bank for qi. You don't want movement. You want stability. That's why salt, with its constant absorbing nature, doesn't belong there. If you disturb your wealth zone too often, or place objects that pull instead of anchor, the energy doesn't leave. It just refuses to build. Wealth becomes air, passing through, never staying. Go to that far left corner today. Stand there. Don't fix it. Don't judge it. Just ask, does this space feel safe to hold abundance? And now that you know where wealth wants to settle, let's talk about where salt can go to support the flow without blocking what's meant to stay. If salt can drain wealth when placed wrong, where should it go? Salt isn't the problem. It's a powerful ally when you understand what it's meant to do. Let's get practical. If salt shouldn't sit near your money, where should it live? In Feng Shui, salt works best in spaces where qi tends to get stuck, rushed, or confused. Not the calm heart of your home. Not the place where energy rests, but the places where energy enters, where it stumbles, or where it spirals. 1. Near your main door, but not too close. The front entrance is where qi first enters, but sometimes it brings with it the static of the outside world. Worries, rush, noise. Place a bowl of salt behind the door, or slightly to the side. Not in direct line with where people step, but close enough to absorb what doesn't belong. That salt becomes your quiet gatekeeper. 2. In corners that feel heavy or forgotten, look for the places in your home that you rarely walk past, but somehow always feel dense. It might be a shadowed corner, behind the couch, next to a shelf. Those are places where qi pools and stagnates. Place salt there, and over time the air will feel lighter. Not immediately, but definitely. 3. Between rooms where energy shifts. Transitional spaces, like hallways, entryways between kitchen and living room, are often chaotic zones. Energy moves too fast, or gets confused. A small bowl of salt on a side table, or ledge in those in-between zones. It helps soften the shift, so that each space holds its own presence again. Important notes: don't overuse. You don't need salt in every room. You don't need to turn your home into a shrine. 3 placements is enough. Sometimes even 1. Think of salt like punctuation in writing. Too much, and the sentence no longer flows. There's a story recorded in the ancient texts of Qimen Dunjia, one of the oldest energy placement systems in Chinese metaphysics. It tells of a noble house in a southern province where wealth passed through 3 generations untouched. The master of that house, a quiet man known for his balance and restraint, was said to place bowls of salt only at the boundaries, never near the hearth, never near the vault. In the 4th scroll of the Dunjia lineage, it is written, where qi is meant to gather, no hand should stir the air. No element that absorbs shall sit. Only that which settles may remain. And so, while others placed salt in their wealth chambers, this man placed it behind his entry screen, and in the northwest wing where winds would spiral. His house remained quiet, still, rich, not in noise, but in rhythm. And for 60 years, no one could explain why his fields flourished when others faltered. But the elders would whisper, "It's the salt. It listens, but it never touches the gold." So walk through your home. Find the places that feel foggy or too busy. That's where salt belongs. Not as a guardian of your wealth, but as a gentle guide for everything that needs to leave. Now that you know where salt should live, let me show you how to move it. With grace, with breath, and with a quiet reset that lets your space begin again. It's not about getting it perfect. It's about honoring the shift and letting the salt begin again. You don't have to throw the salt away. If it's still clean, not hardened, and hasn't yellowed, it can still serve you, just not where it was. The ritual, step by step. This isn't about getting it right. It's about noticing and choosing to begin again. If your salt has been sitting near your wealth, maybe it's time to let it go home. Here's how I like to do it. End of chapter 6. Step 1. Move it like you mean it. Pick it up with both hands. Not rushed. Just honest. You don't need to say anything fancy. I usually whisper, "Thank you. That wasn't your role. Let's try again." And as I carry it, I breathe slow and deep, like I'm giving it a new name. Step 2. Clear the old space gently. Wipe the spot where the salt sat. Not because it's dirty, but because it held energy. I use a cloth, sometimes just my hand. If I have incense nearby, I'll circle it once. Not as a rule, just as a breath made visible. Step 3. Choose the new place with feeling, not rules. I walk through the house and pause where the air feels just stuck. Sometimes it's the corner behind the shoe rack. Sometimes near the bathroom hallway. When I find the right spot, it's quiet, not heavy, just still. I place the salt there and say barely loud enough to hear myself, "From here, you hold the flow, nothing else." Step 4. Give it breath, then walk away. I lean close. Let my breath move across the surface. Not to bless, not to claim, just to say, I'm here, and so are you. Then I leave it. No watching, no waiting, just trust. After I move the salt and let it settle, I never look for signs, but they come, quiet at first. The room feels lighter, not brighter, just unclenched. I find myself breathing deeper without realizing it. Conversations flow smoother. Work feels less stuck. I open a drawer and suddenly remember the thing I've been delaying. Money comes in, not like a flood, but like a tap that finally stops dripping and starts flowing steady. I don't call it magic. I call it alignment returning. And that's the true result of a ritual done with presence. Why I still trust this ritual. I've done many rituals, some with incense, some with coins, some under full moons. But this one, the act of simply moving salt, with breath, with thanks, with presence, it's the one I come back to, because it reminds me, wealth isn't something we chase. It's something we make space for. And every time I do this, not perfectly, not poetically, just honestly, I feel my home return to rhythm. I feel me return. And somehow, the world responds. There's no shame in placing something with love and later realizing it needed to move. What matters now is that your space is listening again, and that the salt, now reset, is no longer guarding what should grow, but guiding what should flow. And as your salt finds its new place, your home, your wealth, your rhythm will begin to find theirs too. If your space feels just a little softer now, if the air around your wealth feels less tense, that's no accident. That's alignment returning. In Feng Shui, energy isn't just created, it's allowed. And when you clear one wrong placement, when you shift one vessel of qi, the entire field responds. Salt wasn't blocking you to hurt you. It just needed to be heard. If this ritual stirred something in you, I'd love to hear it. Just a whisper. I moved it. It feels different now. Or even just, now I see. Because sometimes, naming what shifted is the way we lock it in. I place with presence. I listen to what I used to overlook. I welcome flow, not force. And I trust that my wealth, he knows how to find stillness. Where I've made room. You've just revisited the 9 salt rituals that shape how wealth moves in your space, but this is only the beginning. If even one ritual spoke to you, imagine what could shift when you combine salt with the 5 Feng Shui trees that call in abundance, or when you learn what kitchen rituals silently burn your money flow every single day. This channel is a map, a library of quiet energy practices, waiting to unlock something in you. So if your space, your life, your energy is whispering back to you right now, subscribe to stay close. Leave a comment if one ritual hit you the hardest. And when you're ready, step into the next playlist that's already calling your name.